Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford to forensic audit the city books. After what happened all my life in Abbotsford residents, but the opening of the door by Darren Braun, establishment, a rich and elite establishment that had its hands in the back pockets and front pockets of our MP, our MLA, but in our law enforcement, the Abbotsford Police. Henry Braun ran roughshod with his friends in benefiting off the city, blocking city meetings, controlling the Abbotsford news, controlling the elections, using electoral office and everything. Before I begin today's podcast, I want to just bring you up on something. An Abbotsford judge told me, Mr. Pelican, no one's above the law, no one can use it, no one can bend it. Even the police chief, Mike Sir, on Henry's hit and run. He also said no one thinks at the end, they only think at the beginning, meaning what I can get when you're paying them. Can you do this deal for me and block Mr. Pelican in the newspaper and everything? And that's cash rewards. The judge knows that there's always somebody sees and somebody will tell, and the goodness will come out like Barty Sandu and Rianne Gasper when Sandy Blue and them said I grabbed her up the dress on the whipper whapper to do that. But blocking law enforcement and controlling law enforcement, you have to remove the guys. We don't need a forensic audit. They got to go because they know that stuff got out of hand. We don't need to hear that they're special agents, they're the task force and everything. They should have called each other out, especially on the threats of my life. Henry getting in his car and leaving me for dead, the smashing of my phone, my cameras, the belligerent attacks every day of running me off the road, trying to get me for drinking and driving, but no cooperation by the Abbotsford Police because the company was so big. I showed you that I followed them around and they didn't know they were being watched from the racing of our Dodge Chargers, picking up prostitutes, jumping on their community vehicles, threatening residents, and it just leaves the door wide open that now you're framing everybody you're not doing anything legit. The stuff behind Walmart, the smashing, telling a little African-American kid ripping his packs at you, you're not allowed in the park, and the whole thing. It was a mob. This is why we need politicians and MLAs away from police departments, and it never happens again, and we need to make sure that private police, if they're ever going to exist, they got oversight, and this can never happen. I'm today in front of our law courts, where a democratic process, and you're right, in an election, in a democracy, allows everybody. This didn't happen under Craig Toes. He tried to bribe me and said, Mr. Pelican, you're not going to debate Ross in the chamber at the host of the chamber at the city. We're going to pay all your signs and everything you're out, and we're going to help you in 4 years, but you got to be schooled by the establishment, go to obedience school, and then we'll help you run. It's a bribe. And this is not supposed to take place, and law enforcement's supposed to charge. Then I showed you Gabriel, the electoral officer, wouldn't give me the by-election and the electoral list because Bruce stepped off. And he went after my signs everywhere on private property, thanks to the RCMP. They were all well in, and we knew that Gabriel was doing it. I showed you Dave Sadu at the Capriccio newspaper with Andy Sadu, blocked me from the newspaper, but I also showed you what Vicky Hopes was doing. All to load Ross Siemens, what for? Money and developments. Henry had too much at stake. But it got into criminals and into threats. And nobody was calling nobody out. I told you there was good officers in Abbotsford, and I made that clear, and it's the guys at the bottom. I told you Dix and Kern. Any day I'll put my name beside these individuals, but the guys at the top were corrupt. And when corruption's at the top, it's hard to get rid of it. But politicians were running it. Yuri Fulmer is fully endorsed by me, and why I endorsed him. He has no establishment backing him. He doesn't have establishment in his pockets or nothing. The alliance with One BC is one of the best things that we ever seen. We must be able to go into our MP's office, our MLA's office, and the Premier brings the Attorney General in immediately. And this wasn't happening, even on land deals. And I showed you today, Dave Sadu's property and Andy Sadu's on Tracy Road, the city councils, and we're all Ross and Dave's all ran together. They owed each other, giving that land a lift. And it was preferential treatment. It's insider trading. This is what happened on Marcus Dalvis. This is why Dave Sadu took $10,000 from Marcus to buy the Liberal nomination from the South Asians. And it was blocking everybody. They were in control. But if we have a police department that Yuri Fulmer had sold memberships of 15,417 15,417 he signed up. If you do the math, that's over 50%. Over 50%. Probably a few ads and everything. With what Caroline Elliott had done outside, and that she should have been stopped immediately, bringing in outside help. Nobody should ever respect that lady and what she was doing. It wasn't about voters no more. It's about what they need to do. The stuff with Peter Mellibard and Ian Black being fully helped by Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung, Simon Gibson, who's a sitting city council, going in there and knowing that you're not allowed to be doing this. You're an elected official and you shouldn't be endorsing, because if the other guy gets in, he's going to beat you down, and you shouldn't be doing that. I did podcasts where I've helped DB and I went against DB, and you see that because that's what you're supposed to do for your town. So Yuri Fulmer will have 50%. With what Caroline Elliott did and the Liberals voted on that digital ID, what Yuri says he'll get rid of, is going to hamper him. This is where he will be landing up if he loses in the law courts. And he will be suing here in the law courts, because there is no way mathematically, with them many members he sold and shared and signed up, that man can lose. And everybody knows that statistics. So therefore, all the cheating, I made it clear of how hard it was for you to get registered if you're a senior. And I made it clear that you have to take a picture, then you have to turn to your side and take a picture, then you have to making it impossible for the seniors to be involved in the democratic process where you take your driver's license and you sign up. This would hamper most of the seniors getting out to vote for Yuri Fulmer. And we need to make sure that he has a clear path to the law courts. This is something that was struck by Abbotsford Police on me, on Abbotsford residents, and Henry Brown didn't land up here going to court because his money and his connections through Ed Fast and Mike DeYoung, which was a sitting MLA, a former Attorney General, were above these courts. Mike's party at Bell Road was above the courts when the law said no gathering. Henry abusing the road was above the courts. Abbotsford's Keelan Olenoff threatening to drop a lawsuit in a video that are pending before this court with Abbotsford homeowners was above the court. And that there we have a major problem, and we have to put a stop to it. It's got to go here, the judges and jury see, and this is what we need. So we want to make sure that Yuri Fulmer gets that chance with what he's done in his hard work with Dallas Brody and every one of his candidates, that he's not going to be hampered for establishment to hold power. But we also want to make clear that you have till Wednesday night to get out, get verified, and get registered. Now let me explain what I want you to do, and I want you to hear very closely to this. Either you call Yuri Fulmer and his campaign people, which will help you. He said, I'll come out and I'll help you. One vote's a lot, remember. Or, this is why Henry Brown had to use the task force on Mike Sir to block Councillor Mogel down busing the homeless, and the whole task force went. Now they want to stay out of the light of everybody because we're buddies, our mortgages. When you realize your job and your ass is on the line, them badges don't save you. You're playing with politicians. Everybody had to take a big swallow, I understand. I understand that the hospital might be full at the ER tomorrow when it opens on Tuesday with how many legs or kneecaps are buckled. Ross Siemens and everybody. Seeing me stand beside Yuri Fulmer and endorse him. All the way I'll endorse him. This made the establishment believe that Mr. Pelican and his people and what was saying were ludicrous. It was a conspiracy. Till you see the truth. This is why John Rostad sat in our house. The truth. This is why this happened in Bill Vander Zalm and everything. It was about controlling our city and money, and I showed you the Dave Sadu. 15,417 votes out of 20,000 members that can vote. That's over 50%. Over 50%. Caroline Elliott and Kevin Falcon closed the BC Liberals down, changed it to the BC United, and left the Liberals with nowhere to go for 4 years. Now they're asking you to get behind them. Is this what you do, left in the sand? Kevin Falcon could have given it to his sister-in-law, Caroline Elliott, and did this, and she didn't. And then we see Harman Bangu endorsing her, knowing she was a Liberal, not sticking to his roots. So what do you need to do? You need to get verified. You need to make sure that we get out behind Yuri, because Yuri is not backed by establishment. He's not controlled by establishment. Cooper's Farm would have never happened. There'd be investigations. The Mackenzie Bog, I made videos and made that clear on how many people got deadly sick, and I showed you on Magna, on bylaws. He'll enforce the laws again and make sure preferential treatments, deals go to tendering. There's no more deals like the Abbotsford Police new building over to general public, and it'll be brought before his legislation in Victoria. But we got to make sure that you get out and you get verified. Now, I want to give you 2 heads up. One, you don't want to call Corky Neufeld and go through his office, because I told you I'm going to work hard with Dallas Brody to get one BC or an independent in against him, because he's backing Ian Black, and he knows. He's supposed to be out finding the Abbotsford police that tried to run me off the road and threaten me up at Ledgeview and helping candidates, and he ain't doing that. And he's supposed to be a conservative, and he knows that Ian Black, Henry Brown, and Mike DeYoung and Simon Gibson as City Council, we're all collaborating to endorse, and council are not supposed to do that. We asked him and put him in to make sure that there was transparency, Henry's word, and there wasn't doing that. And you don't want to go through Armin Bankers, so you want to go through Bruce Bamman, phone his office, you want to go through Yuri's office, and you want to go through all Dallas Brody. Give one BC a call and say, you know, I'm behind him. But the stats show this: 15,417 votes in, and new members, with a 20,000 only members to vote. And he'll pull the rest of the stragglers, maybe Ian Black's guys and everybody else behind. We have to open fair playing grounds to all our business community and developers. It wasn't. It was preferential treatment. I showed you what Brad Viss was doing for the flood money. He didn't care about the farmers. I showed you all the preferential treatment, and Ron Funk, Diverse, and Devon Roy, and everything else, changing zoning and everything. They believed when they were in leadership they could go do this. But let's make no mistake. The Abbotsford Police made Henry and his establishment above the law, and that needed to come to an end. Mike Sir figured he would flee from Abbotsford and get away from what was done, putting my life in jeopardy. Henry came out to end my life, then blocked the rights and the charges to go before that court, before witnesses, telling me all Abbotsford police have to go. They can't be trusted on their streets. They can't be respected to police our town anymore. And they were pulling personal favors. And when we look at their officers laying on the street, we have to. BC needs a change. But each community needs to make sure that the mayors and councils are being held accountable by the premiers and the MLAs, and no more friendship. Under Yuri Fulmer and BC won, and Yuri Fulmer as your premier and as the leader for the BC Conservative, these issues are going to be brought up in the legislation. And they're going to be brought up very fast. But what we need here in Abbotsford is make sure Henry's words haunt them. When I get political, I get mean, up on Five Corners with Darryl Plunkus. And his biggest word, transparency. Was there transparency what Vicky Hopes and Ken did at the newspaper the night of the election? Was there transparency at the sports center when Sandy Blue said I grabbed her up the dress? And the Abbotsford police didn't charge? Barty Sindhu was there, the sitting MLA right now, Rianne Gasper was there. Was there transparency at Great Toes, the big chamber of commerce? He needed Ross in no matter what. Was there transparency for Great Toes to bribe and try to bribe and endorse Ross with the chamber? That this is who the chamber was endorsing, giving him leverage. Even RBC Bank said it was wrong. Was there transparency with Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu doing it? And then Andy, the chancellor of USV, where his son's the city council and owning the Caprita newspaper, blocking Mr. Pelican from the South Asians. But there was hope. Under the RCMP omission, Mr. Pelican and Abbotsford residents received a pat on their back to bring it to the light and show the establishment's going to be investigated, because Carney said it the best. They're after money. So, ladies and gentlemen, the stats show you that Yuri Fulmer sold 15,417, over 50% out of 20,000. And then they created this digital ID. This was Caroline Elliott to hamper him, to get the seniors and everybody confused. Bruce Bamman's office has received a lot of calls of helping seniors that didn't know their way around this digital ID. You're going to take your driver's license, and Yuri said when he comes in, and you're going to take your driver's license, you're going to go down and vote. This is what they did to make sure that they could stay in charge and own Abbotsford, the same as Henry was doing. Controlling and owning. Henry Brown has to be brought here with the former police chief until these charges are faced. I made it clear what Henry Brown's son showed and opened the door. I'm going to go through every door with Abbotsford and every one, and I'm going to push and push and push. I'm realizing now that I got to become the mayor of Abbotsford, and I will dismantle the Abbotsford police. You'll be gone. You won't be in that. I hear your story that you're good and all this, and I'm a drug force officer and all this. You'll be gone. You needed to call each other out. When the officer made accusations that I was here and he could frame me and charge me, and I was in White Rock, Colin Watts didn't go to the White Rock to the multi-billionaire and get these reports. This was blocking a democratic process and a democracy for greed. The city is the biggest, juiciest bank account where you can lay on your ass and take that. But I want to make sure the BC won, and the BC Conservative nominating candidate running for your leadership, Yuri Fulmer, understands that's what the courts are for. Your democratic rights, your democracy, and nobody's above the justice system. And this wasn't taking place in Abbotsford. And we want to make sure that if he's blocked now, out of all his members, he can prove without a shadow of a doubt between Caroline Elliott, Peter Millibard, and Ian Black, they were hampering and slowing him down with creating this thing, and this is what we need to do, get rid of that digital ID. So again, contact Bruce Banman's office if you need to get verified and registered by Wednesday at midnight, like Yuri said. Contact Yuri's office at the Conservatives, or even phone Dallas Brody. Stay away from Corky Neufeld, the BC Conservative, because he's steering Ian Black, and stay away from Armin Bangdu because he's steering Caroline Elliott. And you got to look at this. When the BC Conservatives came to light, it was Bruce Banman that brought him to light, giving him party status under my good friend John Rustad, and also brought these people in and said, our job is to unseat the NDP. And that is our job as Conservatives. They didn't. They went and started creating alliances, and you saw that with Corky Neufeld showing up at them, at Ian Black's, and then you saw it with Armin Bangdu. And they weren't giving respect to let the voters go and let the voters say and let the residents say. Under Yuri, you have this. There's no establishment watching him and backing him, and the same with Dallas Brody. You have this. He has to call a spade and a diamond a diamond. That there, Yuri Fulmer and the BC Conservatives need to understand that is what our law courts must do. And we must make sure that charges and everything go back there. We must make sure what the Abbotsford police did. This ain't going to get a pass. I'm live. Abbotsford, British Columbia.